joining us on the BC Wine Video Podcast, produced by the British Columbia Wine Institute in partnership with Kelowna Now. We are at Tantalus Vineyards, and with me is, what is your title?
General manager and winemaker.
All right, so a little bit of everything. You wear all the hats.
I do, yeah, basically.
Perfect. And
I just do all the jobs that other people don't want to do.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Well, I have a lot of jobs like that happening as well. But David here is going to talk about the bee practices here and how your vineyard is sustainable.
Sure. So basically the idea behind keeping bees is one of a larger environmental impact, where bees are very important. They're dying, and we operate in a sustainable manner, not using any insecticides or herbicides that can harm bees. So therefore, we should keep bees as far as we're concerned. Grapes are self-pollinating; they don't actually need bees. But everything else around us, all the landscaping around the building, and some of the interrows are all planted with bee-friendly species. And this is a partnership with Arlo's Honey Farm, which is just up the road. They're an organic honey farm. So they actually keep the bees for us, and we're one of their bee yards. But yeah, bees are awesome, and so if we're operating a sustainable ecosystem, we feel we should keep bees because we have the space to do it.
And I've heard that you're actually one of the only wineries that has some kind of a designation because of sustainability, correct?
Well, so what we have is LEED certification for the building, which is Leadership in Environmental Energy Design. We participate in the Sustainable Wine Growing of BC program, which is headed up by Kelly Garcia. It's something that is voluntary, and we hope that more and more wineries will buy into that program. It's very comprehensive. It looks at your hospitality side and human resource side as one piece of sustainability, and then it also looks at the vineyard practices and the winemaking practices. Where does your glass come from? Where does your cardboard go after it's used? All of these kinds of things encompass sustainability. Organic viticulture can be part of sustainability, but it's a very small part compared to the holistic approach of the entire business.
So what are some of the other things that you practice?
Well, part of the LEED certification is not paving our driveway. It gets a little dusty in the summer, but paving this entire driveway would be a huge heat sink, which would mean that the building would have to work a lot harder to cool it down. So rather than do that, we leave it as natural as possible. We have 10 acres in the middle of our vineyard that we have left natural and actually protected under the Okanagan Wildlife Habitat Stewardship Program. Basically that just means if we ever decided to sell this property, whoever bought it couldn't just knock it down and build condos. So we've protected that area. There's osprey and eagles and owls and coyotes, and the whole real approach to me to sustainability is really looking at your entire ecosystem as one holistic entity, rather than growing a monoculture of grapes, which is our what we make money from.
Right.
But everything else is also really, really important, including having a really healthy ecosystem. And that comes right back to the bees, which are insects that are fairly fragile. So if we've got a healthy bee population, it stands to reason we've got a pretty healthy ecosystem around us.
And just minutes from Tantalus is Summerhill Pyramid Winery, which is where we are right now. With me is Ezra Cipes. He's going to talk about the biodynamics of his winery. What exactly is biodynamics?
Well, biodynamics is a farming system that views the farm as an ecosystem. So at a base level, it's organic. We don't use any synthetics, herbicides or pesticides or fertilizers. But then also we manage it in a way where we really increase biodiversity, and we think about the life of the farm and the life of the soil. We have large nature preserves. We manage the ground cover in a way where we encourage the natural plants, weeds, some people call them, and that brings the natural pollinators and the natural world in.
Right. So some people, they don't like weeds. They don't want weeds in their garden. You, however, you're embracing weeds.
We love them. Our neighbors sometimes ask us to mow around the fence line, but that's we try not to as much as we can. And in a way, it's to me, it's the royal road to making really beautiful wine, because when we think about wine in the more than sort of commodity level wine, we think about a sense of place and a sense of beauty. And when you really have a living environment like that, the plants have an immune system, have deep roots, they get their nutrients from the soil, and they're really a part of their environment, and they really express their environment. So, they tend to have a natural harmony and a sort of sense of place to them.
Is this, would you say, more difficult, this way of farming?
No, it's more beautiful. It's
Okay.
more, it gives us a good feeling, and like we have a purposeful life, and we're doing something meaningful in the world and in our lives, and we're connected with nature and the universe, and offer something from our hearts to
Sure.
our customers. So no, it would be more difficult for me personally to do it any other way.
Sure. So emotionally, mentally,
It's wonderful.
it's better. But in terms of work,
There's some more labor into it, certainly. But yes and no. We've learned what not to do. We've learned when we first started down the organic path, we basically managed the vineyard like a conventional vineyard, except without synthetics. And then, people told us we had to keep the grass mowed and everything, and so we did that for a long time. But we've slowly learned how to do less and make more of it. Some of the key features of a biodynamic farm is animal integration. We work with a lot of manures. We have chickens and we have bees, but we also actually just work with our neighbors. We have horse farms around us, so we bring in their horse manures. We do a lot of composting. We make special preparations to aid in certain biological processes of the farm, the soil, and the compost, and the nature preserves. So those are the sort of markers of a biodynamic farm.
from the central Okanagan, we are now in Okanagan Falls, and I'm sitting here with Jack Meyer of Meyer Family Vineyards. And something that your vineyard focuses on is single vineyard wines. Tell us what
That's
that
right.
means.
Single vineyard wines mean just that. So if we make a wine, all of the grapes come from just one particular vineyard.
Right.
We have a vineyard here in Okanagan Falls, but we also own a vineyard in Naramata, and we have some contract vineyards up and around the Kelowna area, and are just purchasing a vineyard in Kelowna. So we like to make wines from different places, the same wines, and try to make the wines very similar,
Right.
so that when you taste them side by side, you're showcasing the terroir of those vineyards.
Right. So, for example, behind us here,
Yeah.
we have Pinot Noir from the McLean Creek Road. Is that the
Vineyard
one here?
Here, yeah.
And then this one, where's this one from?
The Reimer Family Vineyard, which is up in East Kelowna.
All right.
So two very different Pinots, but we try to make them, the winemaking protocols are all very similar. And
Right.
so, so that when you do taste them, that's what you're tasting is the vineyard.
Right.
Yeah.
So the difference in location really can have an effect on how the
Totally,
wine
the
ends up.
temperature is different, the soil is different,
Right.
the grapes ripen at a slower pace or
Sure.
faster pace, depending. It's much hotter down further south here than it is up in Kelowna, and
Right.
all of those things affect the taste of the wines.
Is this something that is commonly done?
In BC, not so much, but if you look at the rest of the wine world, in particular regions, they're very focused on certain varietals that do quite well in those regions. So
Right.
if you went to Burgundy, pretty much all they do is Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. If you went to Bordeaux, they would do Cab Sauv, Bordeaux blends, which is sort of 5 different varietals. So in BC, where we're a newer industry, the last sort of 30 years, we've been trying to figure out which varietals do best here.
Okay.
And I think what we're starting to see is certainly Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, which are two that we focus on,
Right.
are, I'd say, 2 of the 5 that are really emerging as kind of world-class wines, I would say.
Okay. And not only do you do this with your red wines, but you have the Chardonnays as well. What are these two?
So Old Main Road Vineyard, which is Naramata, and that's a property that we own there. And then again, McLean Creek Vineyard, this property here. Very distinctly different. McLean Creek, a hotter property, the soil's a little more gravelly, and you get a little more minerality, which minerality tastes generally like acidity.
Right.
It's a leaner, more citrusy kind of wine, Chardonnay. And then the Old Main Road, which ripens a little slower, you get sort of more tropical fruits and a little bit. It tastes like it's sweeter, although the sugar levels would be almost identical. All of our wines are very dry, almost zero sugar, residual sugar left at the end of the day.
So what's neat is that not only can you taste the different locations of the same varietal, but what about a different vintage? Have you noticed a lot of change in that as well?
Very much so. And so we don't try to manipulate our wines to be one thing.
Right.
We would like to showcase the vintage, showcase the vineyard, everything that's involved. So every year, if it was a cool year, a hot year, the wines will taste different every year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jack. And
Okay.
It's great to learn about, again, not only can you taste the different terroirs, but also taste
Different
the
vineyards.
different vineyards as well.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's fun. People should come down, try them side by side. It's
Right.
really interesting.
Thanks, Jack.
All right, thank you.
Thank you again for joining us on this edition of the BC Wine Podcast. As we've been discussing, BC wineries grow their grapes using many different methods and techniques. To learn more, go online for additional information and check out our other video podcast episodes. I'm Wesley English for British Columbia Wine Institute and Kelowna Now.